On this episode, put some pressure on it. Hey everybody, this is the quarter show. Welcome back. We're talking about putting some pressure on it. Now, I know in sales, pressure has a negative connotation. And a lot of people say, don't pressure me. And, pressure is a bad thing. You don't want to be a high pressure salesperson and different things like that. And part of that is true. But I think over the years, because there's, in sales you get slapped and you get, different things, or people, back off, or do this. And there's a lot of rejection and a lot of different things that go on, even like light taps or people being abrasive with you and different things like that. And so sometimes there's these doctrines or there's these things that people say that aren't necessarily true. They actually just come from taking losses. They come from taking rejection or getting sort of slapped, right? And it doesn't make it true. Just because you got rejected or you got rebuffed or whatever, it doesn't mean it's true. It just means that you course corrected or maybe you didn't do it right. But pressure is one of those things where I think that there's two sides of that. There's kind of the right way and there's the wrong way. And the wrong way doesn't work, It doesn't work, and people bite your head off and like, don't pressure me, and don't be a high pressure salesperson. And that's true. There's a way, if you're too pressured and too eager in these different things, it's abrasive and you are gonna get slapped for it. But we talk frequently about our deals when we're going through the lineup and different things like that. We're like, look, put some pressure on it. We say put some pressure on it, and that's applying or deploying a little pressure on the prospect to get them to do something, or on the cycle to get them to do something that you need to get done. And without deploying that pressure, it might not happen, or it's going to take too long and different things like that. And so sometimes you have to put a little pressure on your cycle. You have to go, and that could be asking something that's awkward. That could be stating something that's a little higher confront, right? A little higher resistance there. And it might just be, calling somebody and saying, look, John, listen, I want to have this signed off today. Are you able to actually sign off on this thing today and get this going? I'd like to take the time out of it, or however, right? And that's just a light version, but it might be something that's construed as pressure. And frequently, putting some pressure on your deals, especially when you're at the closing stages, especially when you're at the end of the sales cycle, it can be a good thing to push things over the edge and get the final thing, because sometimes people are very good at kind of dragging their feet, especially when it comes to buying, or it comes to signing the contract, or it comes to getting it done. They're good at being vague. They're good at saying, I just kind of, just got to talk it over with a couple other people and or look this over and and foot shuffle and a couple other foot shuffle things that they say, right? And and that's the moment. That's the moment where you need to put a little pressure on it and steer it a little bit to get what you want, to get where you want it to go. And frankly, it's good for them. It's good for you, because it takes the time out of it for them. They shouldn't. The more time they spend, it's like you're spending time on the same thing over and over again. And if you're already at this stage, you're already towards closing, you're already towards the decision. The truth is, the faster they can decide, the faster they can execute, the faster they can get something done, you free up time. And everybody today talks about being busy, and yet people do these things that add time, procrastination, double doing things, double looking at things. All these things add time and actually suck time out of your calendar, and you can be a lot more efficient just by getting it done, both on the salesperson side and on the prospect side. And one of those ways is to put a little pressure on your cycle, put a little pressure on your deals. So don't be afraid at the end of the cycle to find ways to up the ante a little bit, up the pressure a little bit on your cycle. And I know it has a negative connotation, but there's ways of doing it, bumbling through and just being pressure, like, come on, or whatever, and you're going to get hit for that. And there's ways to practice doing it in a subtle way that's going to be saying something that you wouldn't have said. And you know what I'm talking about. When you're in the cycle and you're like, there's something you really want to say, or what you'd really like to say if you were unreasonable. There's something you'd really like to say, but you don't. And that thing that you don't say, that you know you should, that's where you miss the deal. That's where the deal takes longer. That's where the deal doesn't come together. That's where you didn't close it today. It's like, they're like, oh, you know, I just need to, I'm going to look this over. This looks pretty good. I'm going to look this over. And you're like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. and you let that slide. That's the area where you need to deploy a little pressure and bring something to the table that is going to control it so something happens now, as opposed to letting it slide. When you let it slide, it's not doing anybody any favors. It's not really, it just means you have double work. You're going to have to go back around, and eventually you're going to have to take it there, and eventually you're going to follow up even more than you should have, and different things like that. So
I had a few examples today, actually, just today that happened. One was this morning. We were going down the lineup what we're going to do today, and with one particular fellow, you know, I told you what was going on, and you're like, well, just give him a little bit of pressure. So I got on the phone, I left him a voicemail, and I said, hey, you know, this isn't meant to be, and it's okay to have sales pressure, but I said to him on the voicemail, I said, this isn't meant to be sales pressure, but this is meant to be pressure, because logistically, we need to have the airline tickets purchased, we need to have the team arranged, we need to have it on the calendar, so I need you to go and either if you can let me call the fellow who ultimately makes this decision, if you can tell me who that is and give me their phone number, or if you can go to them today, and like within a half hour, it was.
Yeah, I was about to say, a half an hour later that deal came in.
Half an hour later that deal came in. So that was one example of the kind of thing where you can. I just out and told him. I said, I am giving you some pressure right now. Like, I'm a salesperson. I'm not trying to give you sales pressure. I'm not trying to be like sis boom ba. Like, let's go go go. I was just like, hey.
Well, we have a constraint.
Logistically, there's some pressure here,
and I do need you to sign it.
Right.
You know?
And then another one was really cool. Or interesting. This is a sort of a weird kind of, it just relates to the topic. I was talking to another person, and I believe they're imminently going to sign off for a little package of videos. And we went through the sales process, and before you know it, she was sold and like done. And she sort of was like, kind of like, where am I? Like, what happened? I've been sold. Like, she was looking for objections she didn't have. She loves the product, loved the conversation, likes Richter, has a huge recommendation from someone else.
Right.
You know, and is like, oh my goodness. And I'm asking her, so how do we move forward? Right? And she's like, right. And I'm like, look.
Where's that false barrier? Where's that?
Look, I know, how can I defend myself? She was a sweetheart. There was nothing wrong with anything, but that was the phenomenon. I've seen that phenomenon a few times. Yeah. I've seen that phenomenon a few times where a person suddenly finds themselves sold and meant to add time and meant to resist and meant to do different things and found that they couldn't. Yeah. And so I was then when something like that happens, you got to take control of it and you go, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you a proposal. I'm going to send you some, some video that shows what we're going to do next. Right. Here's what we're going to do next. You know, and then I'm going to call you, and then you take control of it because she sort of found herself on a limb. And some different things like that. You know, I mean, like I've done a lot of the pressure of cheerleading pressure.
Sure.
I don't find that useful anymore. I did for a while, and
I think
maybe it helps sometimes.
A lot of people get into that. You know.
Early
days. You know, like that's you can get into the trap of it. Like,
we so want to help you.
Come on,
this is going to be so great.
Whatever. Like, I'm excited. You know. And,
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah. You get into that, and we've all been there. If you're doing that, then I get it. We've all been there.
I did it for like 4 or 5 years. I did it for a long time. And it
just like repetitive calling of saying the exact same thing. For example, like if you repetitive call and just say the exact same thing, you're just kind of like pressuring them. Like, so are we there? Can you sign? Are we there? Can you sign? It's like there's a kind of pestering pressure that's probably going to blow up in your face. And that's where you get the negative connotation, but there's a pro level pressure where you put a little pressure on your deal. And
well, to me, that kind of pressure is where you're like people add time for no reason. People add a day to their calendar for no reason, and so you're helping them not do things that aren't good for their business. You know, I mean, like we have a great service, strategic relations, whereby we do a huge amount of help for a client, and it's an incredible service. And one of our main clients on that currently, they took a few weeks, and maybe they could have taken less time, but I believe they genuinely needed to discuss and look at their own internal numbers and actually make a full, like have a conversation on their side. But at the same time, there was me calling, answering questions,
Yeah.
having meetings with them, like doing everything I could to take the time out of it, because the sooner we start, the sooner it's more helpful for them.
Yeah, and the other thing along those lines, I would just say is like, because there's that propaganda out there about pressure and everything like that, you can get that in your head, like, oh God, I don't want to pressure them. I don't want to pressure them. And what I would say is, and just encourage you, like, just forget that.
Yeah, forget
that. If it's going to blow up and somebody's going to rip your head off, okay, well, you can level up the experience a little bit, and it's not the end of the world if you get your head ripped off.
Plan how not to do that.
Right. Try not to do that. Right. Try not to do that.
Don't just do that a bunch.
Right. But if it does happen, it's okay. And you'll learn from the experience. But there are things where it's like those things that are potentially awkward that are in your mind, like, oh, I should say this. Those are often the things that are the positive pressure that you want to put on the cycle. And it could be like they're saying things that are vague, and it could be asking a question that drills it down or boxes them in a little bit. That could be putting a little pressure.
Here's a great one. If we were to do this, what would have to happen next? If we were to do this, who else has to be involved?
Yeah.
If we were to do this, is that price right, or are these payment terms right?
We talk about that. That's a great handle, by the way. Getting them to think about that. But box them in a little bit, put a little pressure. And they're talking in vague terms, and you bring them in and say, look, if we were moving forward on this, what would be the next step? Oh, okay. And let me handle this.
So how do we do that?
How do we do that? Or can I call so-and-so? Sometimes it could be asking an awkward question, put a little pressure on. It's like, oh, so a bunch of people internally need to talk. Well, who needs to talk internally? That could be putting a little pressure. Now you're getting them to divulge a name or something like that. Now, good, well, can I call that person or however? And obviously it's different for every deal, but elements of putting pressure on the cycle are going to make progress, and you want to make progress. You don't want to let it stall out, and you don't want to feel stuck as a salesperson where you're like, what's next? What do I do? And then you don't want to be backed off because you're thinking, oh gosh, I don't want to pressure them. Right?
Yeah, and on that, the thing that you told me this morning about putting pressure on that particular fellow, that it worked out, the thing that got me around to it in my mind was, because me asking, I was way down the sales cycle, and I still don't have the decision maker. And so Rob asked me, like, so you already know this is not the guy. I'm like, it's not the guy. Like, there's somebody else who's going to be making a decision. I don't have a guy who's making a decision. And I've been talking to this guy the whole time. So to suddenly go around him and try to talk to somebody else, but what makes it okay is that my intention was actually not, right or wrong, was not to get the name of the other guy. Mm-hmm. My intention was to put a little pressure on him for him to go get it done.
Sure.
I knew that if I blatantly, flat out asked him, can you give me the phone number of the business leader in the business group that we're talking about? Can you give me his name and phone number?
In that circumstance, it's going to blow up.
Oh,
yeah.
No, it's not just going to blow up, but I know I'm not going to get that name and number.
Right.
But it's going to get him to go, look, no, wait, I'll go. Right. I'll go.
Let me go handle it.
I'll go take care.
Right.
Right. It's a little pressure.
You're overstepping a little bit.
You're
putting a little pressure on there.
It is an overstep.
It's a bit of an overstep.
On purpose for that reason.
But you got to do it with confidence. You got to bring it in with a lot of certainty.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
And don't come across awkward and weird. And if you do it right, it's going to go well.
Right.
It's going to go well. And I think a lot of people have had egg on their face or get, black eyes from using pressure negatively, but there's a way to use it positively, and just don't be thinking, oh, I don't want to pressure them. Because there's a way to do it positively. It's going to help you actually get your deal done. And obviously it's more applicable typically toward the end. Like when you're towards closing, that's where you want to use it. So think with that, put some pressure on deals here and there, give it a try. Get your head knocked off a couple times, and then you'll figure it out as you go. But don't be afraid of pressure. It is helpful and can be a real asset as part of your overall tools and arsenal. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. If you like it, hit the thumbs up, share with your sales team, and subscribe to the channel. Okay, thanks.